Uh, the six proposals really a collection of things that we've been looking at Central Council for a while now, and much of it is as a result of various kinds of feedbacks that we are getting. And so some of it is to be done so that we close kind of loopholes. Others will be done or implemented so that we can more consistently apply our rules. And some others will address things that are actually not fully or properly covered in the manual. So, all right. As you can see, I'll be addressing 7 changes. The 6 of them are technical, and the 7th, the Handicapper's Manual, really is addressing how these things can or should be implemented following our bylaws. Just from the titles, I think I don't need to read them, so I just cut right into the individual proposals. Now this one is we've been waiting for this for a long time.
So Adam, can I now read out John's little comment on the front end?
Yes, you can.
John Crawley would like to suggest that FFGs, free-flying genoas, be changed to free-flying head sails to match other rules such as ORC and ORR.
I have no problem with that.
Neither do I.
So we can word the poll question when the time comes to change it to FFH. So let me read the proposed rule. Adopt a new free-flying head sail as defined in the ERS rule for point-to-point race courses only. All spinnaker line asymmetrical sails with mid-girth measurement less than 75%, but greater than 55% of the foot shall be measured, and the largest one in the inventory shall carry an area penalty based on the area difference between the largest upwind head sail and the largest FFH in the inventory.
Just a quick look.
The FFH area shall be measured and its area calculated as an asymmetrical spinnaker. Penalty is -1 seconds per mile for each 5% sail area above 155% of the foot triangle. Minimum penalty shall be -1 second per mile. I just throw it in the background so people appreciate this. Credit for small LP jibs retained in the ASP. In other words, we will only go for the area differences. We will not lose the credits a smaller head sail carries in the certificate. The FFH with less than 55% of the foot shall be measured and assessed as jibs or genoas. So all the usual rules will apply to that sail, the area penalty, etc. The FFG can be flown off the centrally fixed sprit with a -3 seconds per mile penalty when the class or boat has been handicapped with the central fixed sprit. So remember, -3 seconds penalty, it relates to the previous change that we already approved. No additional penalty shall apply for an FFG flown off an articulating pole, a sprit, or a bow fitting. So this is the proposal. Now I just throw into, for illustration, a few pictures. North sails define these head sails depending on their girth measurement. The code 0 is in the 75% range. Code 65 is flatter. Code 55. Now this is more in the borderline towards Genoa. And I'm sure a sailmaker will discuss with you your benefits and issues with each one of them. I have some pictures here to illustrate what they look like. Now, this is a pretty big one. I think this is more like close to the 55% girth measurement. But since it's flown off a sprit, I'm sure it's handicapped as an FFG or FFH. Here are some more pictures. You can have very large overlaps, very large areas, very small areas, or smaller LP measurements as a picture. Now, this is a very important aspect. The FFGs or FFHs have been and are still illegal to be flown in all Perth Lake Ontario races, unless this rule change is implemented. Other handicapping systems allow these sails, but handicap them separately. What is the impact? This will essentially make all type of head sails legal, which will be allowed in the point-to-point racing with an appropriate assessment. Stay sails flown inside the forward triangle will not be penalized if the LP is not greater than the largest head sail. And these sails will remain disallowed in the windward leeward racing under Perth Lake Ontario rule. In other words, our certificate will show two different handicaps, and this one will be rolled into the point-to-point handicap. Here's some more pictures. This one is coming. I got this from Kevin. He shows that in his experience, and he might want to talk to this, this would be used in usual cruiser racers that we have, many of them around the lake, like a CNC Red Wing 30. And it indicates that the smallest real spinnaker versus the smallest FFG or FFH is very small. And the actual difference is the penalty would be really not there, and it would benefit the sailors with an easier sail handling setup. So that's one aspect, the most frequently expected combination. And here's a last picture, an interesting one, because people keep saying, "Oh, jib stop, that's a great sail for reaching in heavier conditions," and indeed it is. And here's an example: a jib top flown over a jib, and since it's a very small sail, it will have probably a very small penalty, but it's a good sail. The small penalty, if the sail area is not greater than the head sail, it will still be -1 second per mile, but that's about it. So I believe that we are covering now all the possible sail combinations for point-to-point racing. Makes life better for everybody, and there will be no longer illegal sails in the inventory, as some pictures from racing fleets were shown to us that some boats actually flew illegal sails.
So I do have a quick question here. Is allowing it in point-to-point, not other formats, or a switch between IRC or ORC a recipe for measurement protests, as owners won't really know when it's legal? And would you like to grab that one, Adam?
Well, Perth, when you're racing under Perth, you have a Perth certificate. When you're racing under ORC or IRC, you race under those rules. And you may have a different assessment when you apply for those handicaps. We are not trying to mimic ORC or ORR. We're only looking at them as guidance in some specific issues.
So, and I have one more question from Mike Bauer at Highland. In point-to-point races, will boats flying these sails be classified as white sails or flying sails?
It's a flying sail. It's flown off a sprit.
And I have another question. Can you use an asymmetrical and a Genoa at the same time under point-to-point? Example, wing on wing in light air.
I haven't thought of that one. It's
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit like we have do we allow bloopers? That would be the equivalent.
And I'll
It's slightly different than the blooper question because they're both sails that are registered on their certificate, where a blooper is a completely separate sale.
Mm-hmm.
I don't since we allow these sails to be flown on the same side, I don't see why we couldn't allow them to be flown on opposite sides.
So I have two more questions. The picture that is currently up of the jib top, John is asking, is this picture an example of something without a penalty?
Well, it depends on the measurements. If it's a small sail, if it's a flying sail, even if it's very tiny, we have a -1 second penalty as the minimum penalty to be applied. Other than that, it's the area difference that gets penalized between the largest head sail and the smallest free flying head sail.
So we had a question from Sue Spruill. Are bloopers allowed? And then John Crawley added to that, and I'm in agreement with him, a blooper is measured in as a Genoa. So if I put on a blooper on my J80 and it was larger than my jib, I would be nailed with that. And Kevin is also reminding us that a head sail is attached to the head stay and can fly with a spinnaker, whereas a blooper is free flying. So I keep wanting to remind people they need to read the definitions of what sails are and how they're attached in the equipment rules of sailing. The equipment rules are an integral part of the Perf Lake Ontario rules, and that's how we will be basing things. So thank you, Kevin. Okay. And I have one more from Scott Lyons. Is this change for free flying in 2021 or 2022? Can you point out in the documents where it says a free flying head sail? Example of code 0 is an illegal sail in Perflow.
I think the definition of this of spinnaker is according to equipment rule of sailing is 75% or greater girth.
So I don't know if you want me to unmute you, Kevin. You look like you want to answer that one, but you'd have to let me unmute you. Please unmute yourself, Kevin.
Okay, so a legal code 0, this doesn't change anybody's legal code 0 in their inventory. A legal code 0 has always had to be 75% or bigger mid girth to foot ratio. So no change.
This, and to be clear, this is covering sails that are below 75.0%. So if you had your code 0 at 75.2 or 3 or whatever, that was legal.
But if it's 74.9, it's measured as a Genoa, correct?
No, as a free flying genoa.
Free flying genoa.
Head sail.
A free flying head sail, yes.
Okay. So I think I will leave this open for another second or another 10 seconds. So if there are no other questions, we should probably go to the vote on this. Okay, two more just opened up. Scott Lyons, question. There isn't a slide earlier that says all free-flying head sails are illegal. And the answer is no. We don't have a slide saying that.
I think we have to distinguish here. In the windward-leeward, the Perth Lake Ontario handicap rule at the moment only covers windward-leeward courses. And there we don't have free-flying head sail as part of the inventory.
So there was one question about that we've covered from Sue Sproul. The next one is from Mr. Dougal. Is 2021 or 22 effectiveness?
It's 2022, as you will see in the last handicap change or the last rule change that I have in my sequence. It will explain. It will explain how these things will be put up for public view and then implementation.